Hey, how's it going? Again, this is another video blog. I want to talk about Toronto and Toronto culture. I think Toronto actually has like a warped sense of perception. And, some people may actually say the same thing about me, but that's okay. It's okay to have a varied personality, you know, that's hyper specific to you, right? People want, their own original people. So I guess don't be afraid to be original, I guess. I don't know, have your own thoughts and opinions. But I think Toronto, it's just a weird city. It's a weird city to be in. People are fucking miserable. You're pretty much locked into gridlock. It's a very congested city, and people don't really talk to each other, really socialize. So a lot of people are just concerned with fuck shit. Whether you're rich or poor, people don't really interact all that much, in my opinion. And there's a lot of fucking just insanely unreasonable, weird people in Toronto. Toronto is just a really fucking weird city. But just in general, like, you gotta know, Toronto is a police city, right? Criminals and cops are like a two-sided coin. As someone who's a fan of hip hop, I just don't respect criminals just because you're just seedy and fucking criminal. I don't. I don't like people who, exploit other people. So I don't like police because that's what the policing industry is. And if you need to if you need to know, right, something about Drake, Drake is one of these people, right? He's a fucking rapper. He doesn't, live this fucking lifestyle. He lives in Bridle Path. He doesn't live directly in Toronto. And if Drake actually does make his way down in Toronto or somewhere like Kensington Market, there's not a square inch of Kensington Market where you won't have an undercover cop right next to him or a fucking entourage of bodyguards. Like, it's not what the fuck you think it is. Toronto doesn't have a hip hop industry because the RCMP and the Toronto police likely stomped it the fuck out, right? Go back to the 1980s with Maestro Fresh West, right? This was before gangster rap. This was in the 1980s, before LA, Compton, gangster rap, NWA, Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg, before all these guys, right? You had Maestro Fresh West here in Canada, right? I believe he's from Ottawa. My point being, though, right? They tried to kill, black intellectualism, and hip hop culture before it even made it through the fucking gate. Like, if you watch this compilation video on YouTube, I think it's about like Toronto black accents, and it's really revealing, right? Because like there's a clip where they're talking about a group of black women who are trying to engage in hip hop, and they're saying that 1980s hip hop, there was like an intellectual, in group of these women, like that's what they were talking about, right? They knew that hip hop was a social movement that they were trying to represent and create art through, right? In the 1980s, right? They knew the discussion. They knew what the fucking history was, right? And although I wouldn't say that these women in the clip were, conventionally beautiful, it shows you the kind of space that Toronto hip hop could have been in had Canadian media not just fucking crushed it. Like in that interview with Maestro Fresh West, you can honestly just see this fucking shitty white Canadian culture just talking down to him. Like like the art form has no legitimacy. It doesn't have like these high hit records, golden records yet in the hip hop space. There isn't like multimedia $1 million movie deals. Like this was before all of that shit, right? Because hip hop was a social movement. So if you don't know, a lot of this 90s gangster rap shit, there's a lot of artists who were all mafioso. You had Frank White, the alias and persona of Biggie Smalls. You had Mobb Deep. You had all these people, artists who I like, right? And I liked and admired, but let's just be honest. A lot of this fucking goofy mafia shit. Like, if you really analyze what happened in New York with the five families, life would have been shit if the mafia was still around in New York, right? They controlled the unions. They stopped workers, they had worker suppression. They clamped down on unions so that people's jobs and lives would be shittier. That's what the fucking mob was. They weren't anything to aspire to. They were ultimate exploitation. Just the ultimate, most shittiest people. And the fucking funny thing is, it's like Toronto is such a safe city. Like, if you think about Moss Park, like, sure, it has its issues, but any neighborhood, like, you can go to Esplanade, you can go to Toronto Financial District, you can go to Jane and Finch, you can go to so many of these neighborhoods. You know, the actual crime rate, like 1 out of 100,000, like violent crime, 1 out of 100,000. We have 3 million people population in Toronto. Is not that bad. It's not what it is. If you're not dealing with drugs, if you're not a part of gang members, you don't have any fucking inherent, you know, reason to be talking about street culture. You fucking don't. You live in Toronto. You need to fucking chill, right? You're just some fucking young punk with a hoodie on. You're not street. You're not gangster, right? And if you're not in a police interview room daily, whether you're selling crack or doing some illicit fucking industry, if you're not sitting like across from a police officer in an interview room, right? Then you're not a part of gang life. You have no reason to be talking about snitching, right? If you're just a citizen who fucking wears hoodies and listens to hip hop culture and acts like a tough guy, that's probably the vast majority of people in Toronto who are young and stupid, right? That's the generation. Hip hop is the music of the generation, but it's not what it is. Drake, he can't go anywhere in the city without a fucking cop on his, left or right shoulder with an entourage of security guards, right? These rappers don't listen to their fucking lifestyle. There's no hip hop industry in Toronto. Pressa cannot go to any, club on King Street, downtown Toronto, and do a show. These artists, these hip hop artists, don't have a hip hop industry. You're not doing shows, right? Are you making $100,000 on your first album sales? Likely not. Need to chill. Need to chill on that shit. Stop taking this so seriously, right? People in Toronto, it's just perception. A lot of it's stupid fucking shit. None of them challenge power. None of them challenge like these fucking fancy people of the finance district. Like, they are robbing you blind. They're robbing all of us blind. We're living shittier lifestyles because of these fucking loser people, right? These fucking loser people in business. They make up 20% of Canada's entire economy in Toronto. No, you got to start looking at the real issue. People need to start using their voice to actually make change. That's not snitching, you fucking idiots, right? That's actually creating social change, right? Whether you call it social justice or protesting, there's no other justice than social justice, you fucking morons. Unless you're a judge in a courtroom, there's no other fucking justice than social justice because it's fucking social by definition, you fucking idiot, right? But just to recap, fuck, Toronto is all about perception. And it's just people got it fucked up. You want to know what it is? If you actually live street life, right? I fucking hate criminals and I hate cops because they are the same double-sided coin. They're shit. The Russian mafia, the Italian mafia, the Chinese mafia. All these mafia people, they all snitched. If you actually know the history of the mafia, going back 100, 200 years, they all fucking snitched on each other. The highest ranks of these mafia fucking groups, they all snitched and ratted to the police. They worked with the police because the police are criminals. You fucking morons, right? When Drake's camp jumps Rick Ross over on the West Coast, I'm sorry. I just think Drake's camp is a bunch of white supremacist police officers. I'm seeing Drake's camp, a bunch of white boys jumping in Rick Ross over on the West Coast. They gotta be police officers. That's what it is. Drake is police. Drake has a fucking stun gun and a baton. Drake is a fucking Toronto police officer badge. I swear to God. That's what it looks like. You have these supposed hip-hop street guys who are bigging up fucking police culture. Oh, that's a fucking clue bomb for you. That's a factoid for you. That's a factoid and a half.